Was the police coming to take my dad? I screamed and rushed to him. He smiled and said,
Jennifer, you are brave. Be strong and be a support for your family, and I'll be home soon.
Hello, I am Jennifer. My story begins when I was 10 years old. One morning, my dad returned. My mother, my little sister Annie, and I all greeted him. His return was surprising because he usually only came for a few hours at night. Jennifer's dad, how is it you come in the middle of the day? Have you gone mad? He didn't answer, but turned to his room and Mom followed. We didn't understand what had happened. The next day, we woke up with big noise in front of our house. We went to see what happened, and it was the police coming to take my dad. I screamed and rushed to him. He smiled and said,
Jennifer, you are brave. Be strong and be a support for your family, and I'll be home soon.
I turned to my mother and asked, "Why are they taking him?" She smiled. He just has to go with them to clear up some of his business issues. He'll be returned soon after they sort it out. The next day, I went to school and met my friend Sarah on the way. She asked about my dad, and I told her what Mom had said, but I felt that she didn't believe me. Her strange look and the looks of all the students annoyed me. On my way home, I heard the hushed voices of those we passed, all talking about my father. I heard one woman saying, "I wonder what the ruling will be. I hope that he stays all his life in prison for what he did. I hope his wife divorces him when she finds out the truth." She refused to divorce him. She said that God can do anything and will guide him someday. I looked at Sarah and asked what they are talking about. But she fell silent and said, "I don't know. I think that you need to ask your mom." I rushed home and found 2 police officers out at our house talking to my mom. Once they left, I told her what I had heard on the way. "I want to know the truth." "Fine. Your father was a thief. I tried so much with him, but he refused to listen to me. He was never mean to me, but thieving has been in him since he was young. I prayed for him all the time. Indeed, the 2 women were right. I won't divorce him because I'm sure that God would bring him around someday. We never eat anything from the stolen goods. I have a shop I rent out, and we get food from that. He's not returning, is he? He repented, my love, and he wants to make amends for his transgressions. He confessed and turned himself into the police. But he just wanted to go from his house so that all he'd hurt might witness it, and maybe someday forgive him." "Have they issued a ruling?" "Yes. The officers told me that he was sentenced to 15 years in the penitentiary." That made me sad, but I tried to appear strong. Dad had repented and was making amends for his crimes now. Days passed, and I was harassed by a lot of people's comments, and the classmates who whispered at me, "Ha! She's the daughters of the criminal leader Jennifer's daddy." Their taunts caused me to distance myself from everyone, and I withdrew into myself. But my friend Sarah didn't leave me for a day, and never let anyone say a bad word about my dad in front of her. Given all that stress, I love staying home and making sweets a lot. Every time I tried a new recipe, Mom, Annie, and Sarah were my judges panel. Sarah brought me most of the recipes that I had never tested before. "If you keep getting better, your future will bloom in this field." I grew up and finished my college degree. I matured and the suitors began coming from all directions. But there was one problem. Each suitor who came said,
Jennifer is a beautiful, virtuous young woman, but I do not want her father to be the grandfather of my kids.
Then they would leave without coming back. Sarah always came to console me. I told her I do not want to marry a person who does not respect my father. One day, I applied for a job. I met all the qualifications and waited for them to call, but they didn't. I went to ask about the position, but found someone else in it. She was no better than me in any regard, even though I was certain that she had not used bribery or favoritism. I came home in shock. I met Sarah and told her what had happened. "I'm sorry, my dear. They denied you because of your father." "My dad? What does he have to do with my job?" "You know his past. I don't need to explain the reasons, love. Distance myself." I went home, broken, and stayed there for 3 days, depressed. On the 4th day, Sarah came happy. "Where are you, Jennifer? What's with you? Why are you so excited?" "I have good news for you. I found a businessman supporting small projects, but he has conditions, the most important of which is that his identity not be revealed. But don't be afraid. All of his affairs are legal. I thought of you. What do you think about presenting him your candy business for him to support?" I was very happy and said that God answered my prayers. The second condition is that the business must be outside of our area. If he hadn't set the condition, I would have stipulated it myself. I told about it and she agreed. I finished my forms with the businessman's secretary and started my business in a neighboring city. After a few months, my business was successful and my customers came to love me. I decided to have a huge party to thank everyone who had supported me. I began planning and the businessman agreed. More than that, he gave me a generous amount of money so that the party would be high-end. When there was only 1 day until the party, I heard a violent knock on the door. I ran to open it and found my father. I hugged him and cried. We sat in the living room with him asking, "How did you come home before your sentence was up?"
They saw that I was well-mannered, and for my good conduct especially, my sentence was commuted so that I was released on parole.
"Thank God, you came at just the right time. You are invited tomorrow."
Invited to what?
I told him of my success. I made my sister Annie deliver invitations to every house in our area. The next day, the people came together. Everyone saw a display of confections, tasted them, and enjoyed them. During the speech, I stopped to thank everyone for coming and all who supported me, starting with my family, the businessman, and my loyal customers. My biggest thanks goes to my father, who taught me to be strong, my dad, who was rejected by many because he was a criminal, but who my mother stood by and often made us pray for his guidance, while never marring our image of him. My dad, who repented and before the whole world gave up a life better than his own solely to please his Lord. My father, who is the reason I am where I am now. Yes, for my father's past, I have been denied many marriages and job opportunities that I deserved, but I now praise God for all that denial brought me here. On this occasion, I tell you that I am proud of my father and respect him completely, and I hope that you will all do the same. Everyone looked around, shocked. Suddenly, one of them stood and clapped. Then everyone clapped, proud of me. I sat in front of my parents, Annie and Sarah, while everyone started eating a sweet and enjoying the confections. The man who clapped first approached and shook my dad's hand and said,
"Hello, I want to introduce myself. I am Larry, your old neighbor. I defended Jennifer from bullies when she was young, since I am older than her. The important bit is that my father passed away, so I took over his business. I sought out Jennifer and Sarah told me what had been happening. I sent recipes with Sarah for international sweets so that Jennifer would grow more experienced. When I became certain of Jennifer's success, I told Sarah of my plan to finance Jennifer's business. And here you are, as strong as ever. I now ask your blessing for her engagement, Jennifer's daddy, and I hope that I'm not disappointed. This is a dream I've had since I was young."
Everyone was shocked, and I most of all. But Sarah was laughing. I became engaged on that momentous day. My friends, be assured that in all adversary there is a gift from God within it. Don't forget, perhaps there is something you hate that is actually a blessing in disguise.